Hey, I'm Davin Friedman, class of 2026. Welcome to the Rambler Podcast.
And I'm Natalie Spano, class of 2026. Before you dive into this episode, we wanted to share a quick message with you.
At Cathedral Prep, every opportunity we have in the classroom, on the field, and beyond is made stronger by the Fund of Excellence.
This fund supports tuition assistance, academic programs, athletics, and faith formation. Everything that makes prep.
When you give, you help students like us thrive.
Please make your impact today by visiting www.cathedralprep.com/give. Thank you for believing in us.
Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith. I am a proud member of the Cathedral Prep class of 2011, and I have the pleasure of working here at Prep in our Advancement and Alumni Relations office. Welcome to episode number 97 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. I will be your host for the episode today, and we're excited to have Kate Mastrian Kanne join us on as a guest. Kate graduated from Villa Maria Academy in 1989 and is currently the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Employee Communications at UnitedHealth Group. In this role, Kate leads enterprise-wide employee engagement and communications, helping align messaging, strengthen culture, and advance business priorities across one of the largest healthcare organizations in the country. Kate brings nearly 3 decades of experience in healthcare leadership, communications, and people experience. During her more than 20 years with UnitedHealth Group and Optum, she has held a wide range of executive roles spanning internal communications, brand, product, research, and employee experience. Earlier in her career, she worked with organizations like Kaiser Permanente and Pacific Care Health Systems, including helping establish a physician practice enhancement program focused on using data and insights to improve care outcomes. Beyond her professional work, Kate is deeply committed to community service, working alongside local leaders to manage and staff overflow shelters for unhoused individuals during the winter months. A graduate of John Carroll University and the Ohio State University, Kate lives here in Erie, Pennsylvania with her husband and 3 children. Kate, so glad to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
You're welcome.
This is really exciting.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, and someone as experienced in leadership and communications like you, I'm personally really excited to talk more with you about the topics we have lined up, because I think the communication and leadership are just so crucial to anybody in business and what they're doing in the world today. So I'm personally really excited to learn a lot from you from this conversation.
Good, then I can't wait to dive in. And thank you for that amazing opening.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, it's always the pressure's on while somebody's sitting there listening to me read it.
I know.
But nonetheless, we're really thankful that you're here. And it's fun. You've had at least 1 or 2 come through prep already, and 1 here right now, correct?
I do. I have 3 boys, and they're all proud graduates of Cathedral Prep, except for the last one, of course, who's a freshman. But It's a nice legacy to continue.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's fun. I'm sure you see it from a totally different vantage point now.
Yeah.
Your kids going through it compared to your time at Villa.
I know, I remember when I used to socialize with the prep boys, and now I have prep boys. It's kind of this weird full circle moment that's happening in my life, but I love it, and they love it, so that's the important thing.
And the 2 who are graduates, they're off doing good things?
They're off doing great things. They're both in college. One's a senior, my oldest Joshua, he's at Penn State, and one is a freshman, Spencer, and he's at Creighton University in Omaha. And both are thriving and happy, and we really honestly could not be more proud.
Oh, That's awesome. That's so good to hear. I mean, that's the goal, right? Sending your boys
Absolutely.
here to prep, that they go on and become the men that they should be.
And it was really nice to see their transitions and of their friends. Like, they were 100% prepared.
Yeah.
And so that just meant that the investment that we made, that the time that we spent, it was the right thing to set them on the right path. Of course, their hard work, determination, grit had a lot to do with it too, but that foundation that was laid, I think, was really important to see them kind of soar as they flew the coop and left me brokenhearted. But I'm really glad that they did.
Well, I'm sure you and your husband are very proud of what they've done, and you obviously your role in being the mother, upbringing them into being where they're at today.
I carried the water, but yes, Kurt and I are both very proud.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and it just speaks to the rich history between Villa and Prep.
Absolutely.
And the legacy of, how I opened the podcast, that standard of excellence. Mm-hmm. We strive to allow every student that walks these halls to have the opportunity to pursue success at whatever level it is for them, whether it's education, athletics, or the arts, but to be able to be the best version of themselves. And so to hear that you've been on the other side of it now with between you personally and your children, 2 of the 3, it's really great to hear.
Yeah, and we're very hopeful for the 3rd too.
That's right.
I'm sure Wesley will do great.
We sure he will. Well, and speaking of that tradition, you know, and you being a alumna of Villa Maria Academy, can you walk us through even like for yourself when making that decision to attend Villa?
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? Were you even considering other schools? What led to you deciding to attend there?
Well, you know, and you talk about it in your opening about like legacy and foundation.
Yeah.
So I am the product of parents who one went to Villa and one went to prep. I'm not sure there was a lot of conversation when we were growing up about different choices about where we were going to go. But that legacy of Villa was really important in my family. I have an older sister who went to Villa. My mom went to Villa. My aunt went to Villa. And, you know, in all of the circles that I grew up with, the women went to Villa.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to be a part of it because I saw how important that foundation and legacy were to those women and how strong those women were in my life and how much I admired those women. So it was just kind of the right path for me. And honestly, never once regretted the decision in the 4 years that I was there. So even though legacy drew me, I think the experiences and the connection and the education and all of the things that were part of Villa, the Faith Foundation, just kept me there and kept me really happy in those 4 years.
Oh, that's so great to hear. That's one of the things I love about prep is all the family ties to hear.
Oh, it's so true.
Between prep and Villa, I should say, all the family ties between, you know, my mom went here, my sister, and all the different relationships that we have, and then obviously expanding to friend groups and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's such a special community we have between the prep and Villa, you know, alumni and whatnot, that I'm so proud of to be able to represent on the school
it's
side
like
of things.
a tie that binds you all together. Like and sometimes you don't even know it until you all of a sudden like recognize it in like weird kind of ways. But I'm very proud to have gone there and really proud that many of those traditions and many of those things at Villa continue today because I'm excited for the next generation of women to have similar experiences that I had. And
it's probably pretty neat. You maybe wouldn't have imagined this, but I mean, even for Spencer, he went through Mary's Day, right?
He did.
And you wouldn't have necessarily thought that a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. And I'm glad that he did. I mean, obviously, I have 3 boys, so it's a very male-dominated household. But it was nice to hear him talk about those things that he's experiencing that I got to experience so we could share that, which before we wouldn't have shared that. So it's actually... For me, it was a nice full circle moment. Yeah, I'm kind of cheesy, but I just got chills when you said that too. I love those kind of things. Those things that are just long-standing traditions, but things that you can share commonality and bonds with. Right. And to hear you share that with your son in that moment to talk about Mary's Day and that experience, it's special. Yeah, it was. It was very special. Yeah. So speaking of Mary's Day, I mean, when you look back at your time at Villa and all the different experiences, I mean, are there certain things that stand out to you most during your years at Villa than others? You know, I mean, I would say, first of all, we can't go through this discussion without calling out just the fierceness of women that were present at Villa at the time and across my class. Like, there was something about being in high school, like during those formative years for a young woman, being surrounded by women and being able to express and figure out who you were in this kind of, you know, similar gendered experience and, you know, and time. So maybe it's not like a specific memory, but it's a feeling of the space to create who I was going to become. Yeah. It started there. And then, like, you know, specific experience. I mean, you know, high school is high school, right? Like, there's angstiness that happens in high school, and the angstiness happened even when it was all, you know, women at Villa, and you know, our interaction with the prep boys. Of course, it's high school angst, right? It happens all over the place. So there was those memories of just like the social things. But then there were things like sports day and Mary's Day and ring ceremony and like all of those things that drew us together in this kind of common shared language that I remember honestly like it was yesterday. And after you read my bio, it clearly was not just yesterday. I didn't realize how much time had actually passed. And then, you know, but then we were also blessed with some amazing teachers that allowed us to explore topics and concepts and constructs in this kind of safety-ness almost. I don't know if that's even like the correct word, but like it just felt like we could express ourselves in a way that maybe you couldn't have if you were kind of co-gendered school. I don't know if that still kind of bears the same like gravity as today as it did back then. But that's what I remember, right? I remember that kind of freedom, I think, is a really good word. Yeah.
No fear of judgment.
No, none at all.
The social pressures of having boys there.
Exactly. It just kind of wasn't there. And of course, there's been many studies about, what happens to both men and women when they're in kind of single gendered schools. And so I was happy to have experienced that. I often wonder what would have happened if I was at a co-gendered school. And I think maybe the same outcome would have been there if we had the same foundational kind of approach to education, which I think is what's happening right now at Prep. So like I feel pretty good about that. Yeah. But it was a really special time. And I'm just so thrilled that I could have had that growing up.
Yeah, and that's so great. I mean, when I talk to other Villa, alumni, the commonalities ends up being, those traditions, the Mary's Day ring ceremony that you mentioned, but also, as you were emphasizing, the teachers that were there to allow you to just have that freedom of expression,
so great.
To not have that fear of judgment, those safeguards, those safe drills, as you were talking about, so important for, especially in those years, as you mentioned, high school. I mean, being such a time that you're growing from being just this kid to now you're looking at the future, to being an adult. I mean, there's so much pressure already in that. But to be in a safe environment where you can be trusted, you have people there who love you and support you and care for you. I would like to think all that part of it is still happening.
I think it is. I mean, when I look at Spencer having gone through 3 years of the schools being cohabitated, and now Wesley, this is the only thing he knows, right, as a freshman. I do think it's still there, and I do think the integration of the traditions is really, really important. Seeing Villa and the experience of Prep, I think, is super important, not just for us legacy people, obviously, right? Because we feel strongly, but I think it's also important for the teenagers at school to kind of be able to experience the beauty that we were able to experience as well going through those. So I'm glad to see that those are continuing and hopefully being supported in the long term.
Well, what I love about them most, and what I'll say, is I'm kind of jealous of these kids because it's faith celebrations, it's community celebration. I mean, the ring ceremony, having a community that you're with your classmates to celebrate a milestone of where you're going to be, in this journey of high school. Mary's Day, of course, a big expression of faith and, in that aspect. So I look at all the things that the kids get to do, and they're like, man, I didn't get to do that at Prep, right? Yeah.
Because Villa's super cool.
That's right, exactly.
And we're able to bring super cool things.
That's right. We're happy to have them. Well, and last question on Villa for you. So obviously that was like during your time there. And then when you kind of just reflect on your career a little bit, how did Villa help prepare you maybe for those years? And it's probably going to echo some of what you've said anyway. But how did Villa help prepare you then to go on your career journey?
I mean, I would say, to have a vulnerable moment. It took me a long time to find my voice, which I think is not unusual for women, especially when we kind of get into the work world. Who am I, and what do I stand for, and what do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And it took me a while. It took me a while to have those sea legs underneath me. It took me a while to be able to have the confidence to be able to express myself like that. But I think the foundation of finding my voice happened all the way back at Villa. And then of course I've had many experiences since then that was able to support that. But I think the foundation of who we are begins so early, and those experiences of people, I got the opportunity to have people absolutely believe that I could do anything. And it started with teachers and staff and administration at Prep. And then it went into various other stages of my life. And so I really feel like who I became started the formation at Villa for me, and kind of finding out who I was supposed to be. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
but
that does.
It's just, those foundational things are so important, and you never know like what the impact of like just one person that thinks that you can do something has in the long term in your life. And I think some of those belief in my abilities and strengths and skills, I think they started at Villa. And then was able to then carry that forth, from there through all of the other twists and turns of my life.
I know exactly what you're saying. I think you actually just even articulated something for me that I didn't realize was true for my own experience. It's that foundation of those years from prep for me, Villa for you, that I saw, as I left prep, I didn't have necessarily my voice. I was figuring things out. But I think as I grew in my career and I relied on those foundational years that helped establish who I was even stronger, mentally and just clarity and pursuing my professional goals because of those foundational years. And now that I think back on that, as you articulated that so perfectly, I think I kind of resonate with that same sentiment, because it wasn't right away after prep I felt on top of the world. Right. It was a little bit later on in my journey, but then as I reflect on that foundation, that's what helped me really elevate my career and my pursuits, and being a dad and a husband and all the different areas. Yes, exactly.
And I can remember one time, not to take us down a rabbit hole, but I remember one time when I was in graduate school, I had applied for this kind of national fellowship, which took me out to California, which is the first stage of my career. And the program director, when I told him I was applying, he told me that I should aim lower. And I remember sitting in his, I remember it like clear as day, sitting in his office. And again, that wasn't many years out of high school. So I was still young. And, and hearing a male adult say, I think, little girl, you should aim lower. Yeah. I was stunned and shocked. And then there was something inside me that was like, you think I should aim lower? You just watch. And I think back to that and I'm like, where did that come from? Yeah. And it had to have started back, of course, my upbringing, my parents were obviously very supportive and, obviously in my corner all the time. But it also was some of the confidence and voice I was starting to find at Villa, and then at John Carroll, that I was able to look at him and realize that he was dead wrong and that I should never aim lower. Like, I should always be aiming higher. And, and I can remember the feeling that I got when I got that national fellowship and, just the pride of, I didn't let somebody else put on me the value of what I could bring. Right. I decided to figure that out myself. And I know that started, again, like I said, with some of the foundations that I had in high school. That's
amazing. And what a great testimony, about your story and your journey and that level of resolve and being able to look back and say, you know what, that foundation, where'd that come from? Like you said, reflected on that. Where did that come from? Came from those formative years at Villa.
Did. Yeah, totally did.
That's so awesome.
I know. It felt pretty good.
I bet it did, yeah. Did you walk right into his office?
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. It felt pretty good. And it was a blessing because it was like exactly that moment that my career took a turn that I didn't think it was ever going to take. So it was, the hand of God was definitely part of this journey as well. I can't discount that. I was put on a path that I was supposed to be on. So it did feel pretty good.
Well, so that's a good transition, too, to talk about your career a little bit, because that was the next question I had for you. As we've been reflecting on your time at Villa and just coming up in those stages, and now, you're getting out into the work world, and you're starting to figure out, what do you want to pursue as a career? And you end up in this amazing industry that you've done so well for yourself on. And I guess, my question for you is a little bit, can you share with us a little bit about your story, how you even got started in this, and what made you decide this was a career path for you?
So when I was in high school, I thought for a hot second that I wanted to become a doctor. And then I was like, I don't think I really want to become a doctor. And I think I would have been a good one if I did, but it was just not in the cards. And so I thought, I really am interested in healthcare, but maybe I should go into a business role. So what should I do? And these were conversations I was having with myself in high school. So I was kind of pretty focused in terms of what some of the next steps were going to be for a career for me. And so I decided to marry this kind of interest in medicine and healthcare with a business degree. So I got an undergrad in business and I went to graduate school for health administration. And then, like I said, then I got this national fellowship out in California. I went to Kaiser Permanente. At the time, Kaiser Permanente was like the lead organization around health maintenance organizations and capitated care, for anybody that's listening that kind of understands what all of that means. Sure. And so it was a real honor to be there. But that was kind of the beginning stages of figuring out, what I wanted to do within the space. And, and I was doing something completely different there. Like, it was a data and analytics role. It was getting into care pathing and how you get the best outcomes based on various steps that a provider takes, when they're seeing patients. And so it was very analytical in nature, very focused on primary care and specialty care.
Yeah.
And then the world kind of turned, and I ended up getting a job at Pacific Care, which was a regional health plan. We were across like 7 states, and I went into a completely different. I don't know why. I just took a chance. I took a leap. It was time to kind of do something different, and I went into a product role. I had no idea what I was doing. But as will be hallmarks of any stage of my career, I oftentimes started something when I had no idea what I was doing, and that fake it till you make it is totally real. And finding people who believe in you, that think that you can do it. Like, just that one person that says, no, I think we need to give her a shot because I think she can do it. And then, of course, proving yourself along the way. So I went into this product role, knew nothing. And then by several twists and turns along the way, my company got bought. I was doing marketing and research at the time that we got bought by UnitedHealth Group. And then we joined this huge national company. And I was lost. I didn't have any idea what I should be doing. I didn't have any idea where my skill sets were going to land. I didn't have any idea if I was actually going to have a job. So by hook or by crook, chance, as they like to say, I was asked to start up a communications function at UnitedHealth Group, a corporate communications function, primarily focused on employee communications. I had no idea what I was doing. Yes, I had done marketing. Yes, I had done product. Yes, I had been, communicating informally my entire career, but I had never led a communications team. And what I didn't realize at the time is this was the exact right place for me to be. This is where all of the experiences and everything that I had learned, like, it was all going to come to a point here. And I have been joy-filled over the past, I don't know how many years it was. It was a long, many years.
We have to say the number.
Many years. Let's not even pretend. But like many years in this kind of communications world, being able to translate complex thoughts into understandable chunks that will engage and motivate team members to give discretionary effort into whatever their work is. And it has been, not to be cheesy, but a total honor to be able to tell the stories of the amazing people of UnitedHealth Group and what they do for their communities, for the people that we serve, for the customers that rely on us. Like, it's so hard. It's so hard. The work is so hard, but it's also, the end result is so fulfilling that I feel like it was divine intervention to kind of get me into this role. And I didn't even know I was going to be good at it. And learning that I was good at it and learning that I could be better at it every day if I took X, Y, and Z steps, it's just been a fulfilling journey that I'm so happy that I was able to go on.
Well, it's one of the most complicated things is how do you take a complex situation and communicate it to individuals, but doing it in a way that people can understand it, digest the information in appropriate ways. All the meanwhile, you're trying to communicate all these main facets of a story or information, whatever it is that they need to get. It's a challenge, and it's definitely difficult. But it's so cool to hear how those different moments in your career have led up to it. I like how you're saying you almost have to fake it till you make it for a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You totally do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think, no one is ever 100% qualified for a job that they go into in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, you're just not. Like, maybe you have 80%, maybe you have 50%, maybe it's 95%, whatever. You're never going to be 100%. But, being able to cast aside the parts that you don't know so that it doesn't get in your way, but opening up your mind to being curious and diving into the details, learning everything that you possibly can to get yourself that kind of competency and expertise, like, that's part of the journey. I mean, that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to jump into something where you 100% know everything. That learning curve can really make or break the experience that you have and the accomplishments that you're able to really achieve over time. And I'm so glad that, again, it takes one person to take a chance on somebody to really see them soar. And that's like, that for me was definitely true. And I hope as a leader, I'm doing that for other people too. You know, kind of watching them soar is such a gift as a leader today for me.
Yeah. And I think for any of the listeners that are the young or mid-level professionals that are listening to this, that, you know, what I'm hearing, and hopefully it's resonating with them, go for that next opportunity and realize
absolutely
you won't be 100% qualified for it. But to your point, A, you need somebody who's just going to believe in you.
Totally.
But B, if you take it from the perspective of, you know, if you're a professional who's working hard in your profession and you're curious and you're growing and you're learning, but you apply that same mindset to the next level of a position, whatever you're going for, just go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? They say no?
Absolutely. And like, honestly, there have been many times where I've gone for something and the answer was no.
Yeah.
I mean, many times.
Right.
And, you know, and it's like a kick in the teeth. You're like, what do you mean? I am so good. Are you serious? Why would you say no? But, you know, that no turned into something else. It either turned into a different opportunity that I didn't see. It turned into a resolve or a grit that I had to grow inside myself to be able to make it to the next level.
Yeah.
It turned into a conversation with other people about like where I thought my skill sets were, but where they really actually were. I mean, all of the no isn't a door slammed in your face. The no can actually be a gift to get you to, you know, where you want to be next. And so I hope, you know, taking hubris out of it, because, you know, the ego response is very large in all of us. You know, the no shouldn't be a negative. It should just be really the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah. I often heard it phrased early on, no just means not right now, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Might not be this opportunity, but the next one that comes around might be the one that you're getting ready for.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I feel like this topic of what we're talking about too now is transitioning into leadership a little bit, because I think as you grow in your profession, you also need to be able to grow in your leadership skill set.
Right.
So I guess one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was maybe when you were early on in your career, what did leadership sound like, look like to you?
Yeah.
But now that you're further along down your journey, won't quote the number of years.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
What does leadership look like nowadays? So maybe just kind of, you know, how's that changed, that definition for you over time?
You know, I think when I was an early leader, leadership was about me, right? It was about how can I succeed? How can I get this team to do this? How can I? And over time, that became more of a we, and now it's more of a them. So what I mean is that I think good leaders, and I hope, you know, in retrospect, as you know, as I have team members that look back on my own leadership, I hope that they see this. I hope I was able to accomplish it. But taking the I out of leadership and growing into the we and they means that at some point you supplant your own needs and desires, and your main job is to remove obstacles, grow and develop those, you know, those that you lead, so that someday they can far exceed where you were.
Yeah.
And if I can do that for my team, like that to me is the really the benefit, the payoff of being a leader, because it's not how people perceive me anymore. It's about how they perceive my team. And if my team has success, if my team accomplishes what we were able to accomplish, then the glory is all theirs. It's not mine. It's not mine anymore. It shouldn't be mine anymore. It really should be theirs. And they should be empowered to grow and take their careers into places that they didn't even see. Like, the best thing for me is when I have a team member that comes to me and says, I think it's time for me to go. I got this other opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's nothing but celebration. I mean, of course, we're going to miss them. You know, we do have a strong culture on my team. Yeah. But you know, to see them figure out what it is that they want and go for it and get it, like that's a joy. That's a joy. And then that leaves a space open for somebody else to come in and hopefully have that same opportunity to find out what they want and to grow and to develop and then go and soar themselves. So that's what leadership is to me now.
Yeah.
And it was a journey, right? Because again, like I said, ego is very strong, and you get, you know, your first big title, or you get your first big team, or whatever it happens to be, and you really think it's all about you, and realizing that it's actually not about you at all.
Yeah.
It's about the people that you lead and about the people that your team serves. And keeping that in mind at all times, I think, is really the key to success. At least it has been for my career.
Well, I love how you just phrased it at the end there even. It's about who I serve as a leader and about who they serve. Because in the end of the day, that's what we're all here for, is to serve somebody on some level, whether you're in the nonprofit industry or you're in the professional, business world. It's all about people, right, in the end.
It is, yeah.
Which can be a great joy. But I was also going to say, some of the comments you're making, easier said than done sometimes too, right, as a leader?
It absolutely is. Like in my job, I oftentimes have to deal with, bad behaviors sometimes, right? And so, I often say that I get all of my inspiration from the employees to which I communicate, right? Like I work at a place where the people that work there are incredible. I mean, they come every day. They are mission driven. They are culture focused, and I need to make sure that, what we do in communications allows them to be the best that they can be. But then sometimes, because we're humans, mistakes are sometimes made. And then we have to, as a communications team, be able to address that. And that causes, stress, consternation, anxiety, anger, all the things.
Right.
So it's like this two sides of the coin, but always remembering that whatever I do, there's always a person at the end of it that's going to receive, content that we push out, or, communications that we push out, or cultural messages that we push out. And making sure that those land in the best possible way, no matter the circumstances, it's a really big responsibility. It's one that I love, obviously, but it's really big. And I think sometimes, because it's an internal communication kind of focus, some of that maybe isn't always seen as super exciting, but for me, it's been a source of inspiration and really great joy over the many years that I've been doing it. I feel lucky. Yeah,
and one of my favorite authors is John Maxwell. And he talks all about being a servant-led leader and just the emphasis on, you put the ego aside, check it out the door. You're going to find out fast if you want to be a successful leader.
Real fast.
It cannot be all about you and your accomplishments, and you want your team members to do this or that. He said, before you know it, you won't have a team to even lead.
Exactly. That's exactly true. And if you kind of forget who you are, I think that has been a hallmark of, I think, most of my career, is always kind of remembering, no matter where I am or what stage I happen to be on, or what opportunity I have, or anything like that, right? Is I'm still Kate Mastrian, Colorado Drive, parent, daughter of Pat and Judy, sister of Danny, Gary, and Pat. I'm still that person. And as long as I remember that and show up as my authentic self every single time, when I'm in situations, I find that guide rail keeps me exactly where I have to be at all times. It's when you start to believe your own press, that's when you kind of run into a problem as a leader. You just got to remember who you are and lead that way, I think.
And hopefully you have enough self-awareness to notice that. Otherwise, I think you'll be tripped up by something that happens that will push you right back into where you need to be.
Absolutely.
Because I've had that experience too.
When you get just too full of yourself, it's amazing how the universe, God, however you want to say it, I like to say it's God, goes, no, not now. Boop, right back into right back into the middle of the road.
Definitely the Lord just smacking me right in the butt to say, look, let's get you in line here.
Let's dial it back, Annie, dial it back.
Well, one of the things I love about your bio, but then also hearing you talk about your journey earlier here, talking about the different areas you've worked in professionally within your business career, across marketing, internal communications that you were talking about that wasn't necessarily leading an effort before, but you've worked in that in some areas. Leadership, the people experience. There's so many different areas that you've been involved in the business, world. I guess, staying on this topic of leadership, but how did moving across all these different disciplines help strengthen you as a leader?
Well, I am a firm believer in diversity of experiences, kind of enriching the fabric of one's point of view, right? So I think the more areas you dip your toe in, sometimes more successfully than others, by the way, like to be crystal clear. Like, I'm not a great analyst. So, like,
yeah, you mentioned that.
Yes,
part, yeah.
like I used to look at tons of, but like I wasn't the strongest analyst in the whole world. But what it did for me was it filled my brain with a lot of facts and figures and process understanding, so that when I eventually got to this space of communications, I was able to look at it through a lens that wasn't narrow, it was wide.
Yeah.
So like a really good example was when I worked at UnitedHealth Care, which is in the insurance arm of UnitedHealth Group. I was a chief of staff to the president of the Western markets out in California. And I used to sit in on rate meetings, and so I could have, when I left UnitedHealth Care to go over to Optum, I could have told you all of the inputs into our rate model, like how they worked, how it spit out a rate, like what the healthcare economic principles were to kind of get into that rate model. I don't use that at all anymore.
Right.
But what I was able to use in that is a deep understanding of the business and a deep understanding of the people in the business. So that when I had to communicate to the people in the business, I could put myself into their shoes. And that made me a stronger communicator.
Yeah.
So this kind of acquisition of knowledge, acquisition of perspective, acquisition of people's own individual experiences gave me a tapestry to play with for communication, so that my content was relatable. And that, I think, just makes me a more successful communicator. And by the way, kind of like that's a life lesson, right? Like,
Yeah.
The more that you open your
Right.
aperture, the more that you are able to see yourself in faces of others, which I think is probably why we did so much work with the unhoused here in Erie.
Yeah.
And, the line between my life and those that we served at the homeless shelter, that's not a very big line. It doesn't take too many twists and turns to see, I could have ended up there as well if I hadn't taken, path A instead of path B. So understanding that leads to kind of the sanctity of each individual that I come across.
Yeah.
And it makes me a better worker, a better leader, a better communicator, a better sister, daughter, mother, wife, right? That you can't have a narrow aperture, especially today. Your aperture has to be broad so that you can understand lived experiences of a whole bunch of different people to be able to really, I think, advance your own life in meaningful ways.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And what I love about that answer you just gave, because on the surface, that question is, well, yeah, of course it helps to have multiple disciplines experience,
yeah.
right? But I love hearing your thought process behind what that did for you, because what I've heard through this whole episode of the podcast has been you've had this driven mentality to be the best you could be at whatever position you've had. You've had this level of desire to learn, to be curious, to strive and do the best you can at whatever role you've had. And through a culmination of a career, you've been able to have the opportunity to be in leadership positions and strive for more and more opportunities that I just so much enjoyed listening to you answer that question, because less about the specifics, but more hearing your thought process and mindset behind what you've been able to do and accomplish because of how you approach these situations in these different areas of your career. I think that's what's so great about having you on the podcast and others that I've had, is being able to hear what ultimately has helped you grow into being the person you are today. How have you been able to achieve what you've been able to achieve? And it's less of the X's and O's, and it's more of, because anybody can go on Google or ChatGPT and tap in, how do you develop a communications plan?
Right.
But be able to execute that at the level you've been able to has been a culmination of experiences that started with Villa and then has grown ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, it's like foundational.
Yeah.
And I hear you say that, and I think, oh, like, I really am fantastic. But I also want to preface that, like, this was not a linear journey. Like, these were not learnings that I understood when I started my career right out of graduate school. Like, these were things that I had to learn because I fell, because I stumbled, because I wasn't 100%, because I let ego get in the way, or because I let self-doubt get in the way, or whatever it happened to be, right? So this is after, unfortunately many years in the workforce, being able to look back and really dissect, be very purposeful in understanding how I got here.
Yeah.
And how I got to this moment was the culmination of so many things: people, experiences, luck, my own determination and grit, the support of my family and my husband, even my kids. Like, even when I stumbled, like having my kids call me and say, "It's okay, Mom, like, you're still the best mom, and like it's gonna all be all right."
Yeah.
Like, just having that support around me, just it helped get me to here.
Yeah.
And here isn't an end point. Like, there's still more to come. I don't know what it is, but there's still more to come. But it started way back when, when I entered into the Hallowed Halls of Villa, and continued on.
Well, and that's a great perspective too. It's not just you've had this career that's just skyrocketed, no issues, no failures.
Yeah, not even a little bit. Yeah.
Failure is part of the journey.
It totally is.
Right?
It absolutely, like, I wouldn't have, like, don't get me wrong, like, failures hurt. Like, it's
Right.
like, oof.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. But I like to think that there was a reason why I failed, because there was an opportunity that came that I didn't see coming. And had I gotten what I thought I wanted, then that next door wouldn't have opened. So it's a great perspective to have as you look back. It's a really hard perspective to get when it's happening to you in the moment, but it is 100% true. 100% true.
Well, and one of other John Maxwell's books is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Yes.
So he even rephrased that to think, it's not so much that you lose, you're a failure. No, take that as a moment to learn and understand why did that happen, and now grow as a leader, grow in your profession, and be better.
Yeah.
And, just learn from that experience. So I think if we kind of reframe failure in our minds as professionals to say, it's not the end-all, be-all. It's going to happen inevitably in all of our journeys.
Everybody.
So be ready.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and those are some of the things that I think it's just so important for us to cue in on as we continue to strive in our careers and do better and better. And staying on this topic of leadership, what's maybe one mistake? We've talked a lot about leadership, but what's maybe one mistake that you see leaders commonly make when it comes to, and I want to be more specific here, communications? So, you live in this world and you are constantly taking information and giving it to people. I'm sure many of us listening and me having this conversation with you, same thing. We're trying to figure out how to best communicate information to a certain audience.
Yeah.
What's one mistake you see people commonly make when trying to do that, to get information out and communicate it?
Yeah. I think it probably starts with a misalignment about what your audience wants to hear. So what I mean by that is that, you have to, when you're creating a communication that you want people to understand, that's relevant, that you need them to engage in, that you need them to take something away from, you have to understand where that audience is. I don't mean physically, I mean kind of like where they're at in whatever journey that they're on. And what I see a lot of times is that, the author of the communication will oftentimes put themselves at the center and not the audience at the center. And when that happens, that is usually when a communication is less successful than it should be. So if you extrapolate that into life, right, it is really about looking outward and understanding people other than yourself to be able to reach and engage and support.
Yeah.
But the minute the center becomes something other, I think that's when things become less effective. And I should also say, I work with some amazing leaders who, I mean, I'm not disparaging any leader that I am able to support and work with. I am so grateful to be around smart, driven, passionate leaders. But all of us, myself included, are human, and we make mistakes, right? So the mistake is, and you can see it when you look at things kind of retrospectively, right? Like, I can tell exactly when something, after the fact, when something went off the rails. And it's usually when, we collectively have lost sight of either the goal that we're trying to achieve or what we need the end audience to say, do, or feel. And if we lose that, then we've kind of lost the power of what that communication can be. But when we don't lose it and we nail it, it's like chef's kiss. It's great.
That's amazing. Well, and there's a quote I heard before that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yes. And I think it speaks exactly to what you're saying, where we can have the best information in the world, but if you're not thinking about that end audience, the person who's going to consume it, and put them first in terms of being able to deliver a message. And that's, again, this is kind of goes back, easier said than done, right? Same thing with leadership, same thing with communication.
Absolutely, yeah. And people are fallible, so like everyone's always going to make a mistake. I mean, that's just like this is like normal. But when I can kind of help navigate that a little bit like that, it does feel pretty good because I am trained to always look at the end audience. But even I sometimes lose sight of that, and I can see when it happens, and I know that it's not going to be a great outcome.
Right. Yeah, it's a very difficult task, but I think it's one once you understand your organization, you understand the people that your organization benefits, and you start to really get ingrained in that culture of understanding what is our purpose and function. Yes, to make. If you're a nonprofit, to serve the people. Yes, to produce a business profit, whatever it is. But who's the audience that we need to serve with the function of why we're here? Yep. You put that first. I think all things will end up working out.
I think so too. I firmly believe it. Yeah, I do.
All right. So looking back for you, what advice would you give your younger self starting out in your profession?
Jimmy. Looking back, what would I give? I would say a couple things. One, trust the process, which sounds so trite, doesn't it? Trust the process.
Trust the process.
It's like something you would put on a plaque in your kitchen. But
that Hobby Lobby somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like just something that you give your college kid as they're going off to school. Put this in your dorm room. But I would say, life. I have found. I feel like I'm like 87,000 years old. But life is a journey, as we all know, and there is joy in each stop along the way. And I think sometimes I was so fixated on what the next was going to be that I forgot to look at the present. And I didn't enjoy the moment. I didn't trust the process. And I doubted a lot. And I think if I could go back, that would be one piece of advice. Yeah. Or maybe that was like three pieces of advice in one.
That's all right.
And I think the other thing is, especially as I look back, like high school and finding voice and all that kind of stuff, I would have had more confidence in myself earlier. I wouldn't have put what I thought other people wanted me to be or wanted to see from me in the forefront. I would have allowed my voice to be developed sooner. When I found it, it was great, but it took a while. And I wish I didn't waste those years on things that just didn't matter, right? Just didn't, nobody's really watching you. You're the only one that's really watching you. So we have to forget that the world isn't necessarily watching. At least it wasn't back then because we didn't have social media when I was coming up in the world. But I would have been more forgiving and kind to myself so that I was able to figure out who I was faster. I wasted time and that didn't feel great. Yeah, that probably what I would have done.
I think many of us are shaking our head agreeing. Yes, I wish I would have early on not worried about the naysayers or people's opinions, and most of that's just fabricated in our own head anyway.
It totally is. It was all made up. It wasn't real.
Right.
And it was such a waste of time. So that's probably what I would say to my younger, more naive self.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the trust the process I love because it can be a cliche, but honestly, I mean, even just understanding that at its level of, it helps establish confidence that, you know what, I'm on the right path. If I trust what I'm doing is right, I know I'm working hard, I'm learning, I'm growing, this isn't the end all be all, but I
Right.
trust the process of what my life can turn into. It establishes confidence in yourself to say,
does,
you know
yeah,
what?
it
Yeah,
does.
I am doing the right
Yeah.
work. I am doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, what we had talked about earlier about just kind of showing up like who you are,
Yeah.
I oftentimes think, if when I show up in a day and I am 100% true to my core, my values, my faith, my perspective, my experiences, regardless of what the outcome is, I can close my eyes at the end of the night and I can say, you know what, like it was a good day. Because I didn't compromise who I was, and I didn't forget who I was, and I didn't manipulate who I was to fit a different narrative. And so, the ability to always show up as you, whatever that looks like for the individual, I think is really, really important. Because it takes, the lows won't seem so low, and the highs won't seem so high. It's just that process that you go through along the way. The other blips, the blips are easy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that stems from just kind of just always having your own personal core at the center of everything that you do. And I don't think your core steers you wrong.
Yeah.
I don't.
And it's very empowering, I think, for all of us to hear that message and be reminded of that exactly what you just said. Just, it's at your core. A lot of times we know the right decision. We know the things we need to do.
We do.
And if we just live by our values and at the end of the night we be happy with the work we did, then that's the best thing. And you know what? We're not all going to go to bed happy with the work we did.
No.
But that's okay, because what we talked about earlier, learning from those moments.
1,000%, yeah. And remembering that, like, this journey is supposed to be fun.
Right.
Like, it's not supposed to be super serious.
Right.
So, having the ability to laugh at yourself and laugh at mistakes and laugh at joys and all of the laughter and the fun and surrounding yourself with people who share that kind of point of view as you do, like, it means the world.
And sometimes when you have 3 or 4 young kids at home, you got to remind yourself that a little bit extra sometimes on those stressful days.
It's a lot, especially 3 boys when they were little.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Our 2 boys are a lot. I can only imagine 3 of them.
Yeah, it was, they're fantastic, don't get me wrong. But,
poor Wesley being the youngest.
I know. I think he carries a burden.
That's right. Well, this has been like a masterclass of just leadership and I think striving for excellence in the professional world. I've loved this conversation and I really appreciate you coming on. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. It was really, really fun. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's been great, and hopefully our listeners have gained just as much value as I have. But reflecting on your time at Villa, talking through the different stages of your career, it's been really enjoyable. I just want to say thank you for coming on as a guest.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.